We can speak about incentive programs not being marketed well and difficult to find. But one thing's for sure, there's a lot of opportunity out there. We just need to be connected to the right people to get our hands on them.
Steel manufacturers can choose from various energy incentives when adding intelligent motor control. Priyanka and Kay explain when to unlock grants, carbon credits, tax rebates, or energy subsidies, and choosing best fit. And Grant peels back the layers.
Now, let's bridge that knowledge gap.
So you're just back from a conference, Priyanka?
Yes, I attended a conference in Chicago, and I think it was so impactful speaking to utility representatives about what incentives are available in the North American region and how there's just a lack of awareness for the stakeholders involved when applying for an incentive.
So what do you think the main challenges are then? I guess it's around trying to maximize return on investment.
Yes, definitely. So if you're a sustainability lead and you're watching this, I think it's going to be really valuable because we're going to be covering the challenges with regards to achieving ROI.
And thinking, I suppose, about state level, national level, federal level incentives.
Yes, for sure. I think there's just so much confusion and lack of awareness when it comes to that. And also just the timelines attached to ROI.
Shortlisting incentives is the first step. Weighing out the trade-offs between them comes next, especially when scaling across multiple sites.
So it's important to remember there are look back and look forward incentives.
Absolutely. And we try to leverage look forward incentives with our opportunities just to make the overall opportunity to the client much more viable. And we're looking at this in the feasibility stage much before procuring equipment for motor control. But can you tell me more about the look back incentives?
So absolutely. So look back incentives would come into play where you've started or commissioned the project. And this is where you can retrospectively look at things like tax benefits, even registering for carbon credits or energy subsidies. And that means you're not constantly having to forward think about your project timelines. So understanding a company and their technology really lets us pan out a little and look at things on a global scale. So not every country has the same incentives. They're all different. And by understanding a business, we can really tap into where is there a rich pocket of incentives for you to explore as a business. And that can really tie into your strategy with what you want to do with your global footprint.
We have a global relationship with a large steel manufacturer, and we have deployed our energy efficiency projects across multiple sites. And I think that speaks to replicability and scalability.
So from an engineering perspective, what is important to you from a scalability perspective?
It's about implementing standardized technical architectures, standardized reporting, and most importantly, measurement and verification methodologies that align to ISO standards.
I guess you need to have that bit of a crystal ball to really understand what is available.
Just thinking of a client, they were able to access around $2.5 million in a look forward incentive, but they needed to start that process at least 6 months prior to implementing any type of project.
Thinking about the full energy efficiency value chain, it's really important to think end to end. In some cases, company X might be eligible for the incentive, but in some cases, it might be company Y. So it's really important to fit the jigsaw together. From an operational perspective, how does that feel for you?
Our energy efficiency projects are really the basis for these energy incentives. We're typically dealing with maybe one champ in the project, but with that champ, there's maybe 20 other stakeholders that have to get involved in the process. And that becomes very difficult to navigate, considering there's so many approvals that we have to go through from feasibility to a live project. Once we're done with that process, we're able to sort of access the right incentives, obviously with the right guidance.
At this point, there was only one logical next step. Bring Grant in to talk about, multi-layer grants.
That's right. As my name suggests, I am Grant, here to talk about U.S. grants and incentives. U.S. grants and incentives perform a very complex and intricate part of the site selection process. There are 3 levels of incentives: federal, state, and local incentives, and they can be layered on top of each other to create an incentives pattern that works best for all shapes and sizes of projects. If a project isn't contributing a lot in terms of CapEx or direct job creation, one must think of indirect job creation and the stabilization of the workforce with some downstream partners.
So, Kay, it's a very interesting space. There's look forward, there's look back incentives. If you had to give advice to a sustainability lead who's trying to navigate this whole area of incentives, what would it be?
I think that would be to consider the timelines of the project. And if the timelines don't match up with an open grant call, then I would say look back at the retrospective incentives. For example, could you register for carbon credits or Undie tax? And that gives you the most holistic way of funding the project while keeping the project in a viable timeline for you.
Interesting.
For steel manufacturers, energy incentives are an operational and financial decision. With the right planning, a complex patchwork of incentives can compound savings.